Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. This is the second part of the MG36 build, at which point we're going to be shimming this gearbox and potentially putting it back together. Just going to quickly try and see how much shit I can get out of this sector gear. Now, shimming is going to be a lot of fun. No, it's fucking hate it. Shimming is it's an art. I was going to say it's an art. It's the act of using little metal shims to space gears laterally to reduce the play and backlash in the gears. So you get less friction, you'll get less noise, less wear. Now, I've been trying all frigging evening, all last evening, trying to get this bloody gunk out of these gears, and it's absolutely grim. It is probably one of the most disgusting greases I've ever come across. Frankly, I'm getting to the point where I'm just saying it'll do. And I don't think it's going to make much of a difference anyway. But anyway, onto the shimming. Now, most of the time people remove the gearbox bushings with the gears. These ones are, I believe, press fitted. They are actually interference fit. I cannot see any way of taking these out. I'm not going to dare using a punch on them. I personally prefer using bushings because they are more stable than bearings. So yeah, anyway, we've got our shims here. These are the old shims. I probably will reuse them. Now, first we want to establish what we want shimming wise. Now, we want this flat surface area here on the spur gear and the flat area here, and it's these sectors here to be clear of we basically don't want the gears to rub together in an unwanted way. We want as much surface area as possible between the teeth. You don't want a little amount, because that way you'll rip your teeth off, but you don't want it completely jammed tight, because you'll get a little you'll get scraping. Same with the spur and bevel. We want them to be nice. We want them to mesh nicely, but we don't want them jammed tight. Now, this is a lengthy process, and this chair is exceedingly creaky. And it's very cold in here as well, because it's a conservatory. There's no heating in here. Right, so we want the most efficient. You want the best. You want the most amount of surface area between the teeth, but you also want it to where you want it to rub the least. Again, against points you don't want it to rub against. Now, I will admit I was doing this last night. I was going to add it onto the other video, but I completely ballsed it up. I was tired and I put the gears in incorrectly, so I just started again today. I am starting again. Just don't do stuff when you're tired on Airsoft gearboxes. Don't do anything when you're tired anyway. There's no point, because then you do half-assed jobs. So I personally hate shimming, but let's just get on with it. Now, I like to start with the bevel. You can already hear we've got a nice noisy we've got abrasion against the bushing. So let's take a thin shim. Bearing in mind, shims come in different thicknesses. We're going to go with the thinnest little one we can find, just to separate it. Now, bear in mind, there's no lubricant in this just yet. There will be. That's already a lot better, but I think we can go just one step up. Let's go with a. Yeah, that's probably as best as we're going to get, bearing in mind there is no lubricant. Normally when I lubricate a gearbox, I plaster everything in here, this area here, in grease, and just because it works really well. Anyway, the next step is you want to take the gearbox other side of the gearbox housing, and you want to place it on. Now, some people say just to pinch it for the most part. Now, I used to just screw it on because I like to get a proper experience as to what will happen. Otherwise, you'll end up with inconsistencies. But just holding this together tightly will do for now. Now, what we don't want is we don't want all this lateral movement here. It's an awful amount of play. That can really make a mess of a gun, because then your teeth aren't going to mesh correctly. So we're going to go with different stages of thicknesses. We're going to go with a relatively thick shim here, and yeah, that's I'll put that on the wrong side anyway, but we'll drop that off. Should probably think then out, not anything. But there we go. On that side this time. Chances are we might have too much. And now that's already reduced a lot of the play. However, we still have quite a bit of play, so we're going to go with another relatively thick one on top. If you are to over shim, what will happen is you end up with exceedingly high amounts of friction, and the guns don't like it. More strain on the motor. Like what we've done here, there's no movement. However, I'm going to drop it down a size, or at the very least, what I might do quickly is chuck a couple of gearbox screws in. That way, you can get a more realistic demonstration as to if you need to remove shims or not. Because it might spin nice and fluently when you've got it held together by hand, and then it might completely lock up, like I've done before, like I did with a Masada gearbox. Because I don't know who's told me that about holding the gearbox casing together, but I'd rather just take the extra 5 minutes of just screwing stuff in, because you're going to get a better job overall. Like that is awfully stiff all of a sudden. So I didn't, and as you saw, I wouldn't have noticed that if I didn't screw it up. So we're going to drop a thinner shim on the top. Otherwise, it's just going to be exceedingly. It's not going to do the gearbox any good over shimming. And if you're running quite a hot spring, such as an M130 or an M120, yeah, you might even struggle to turn the gearbox over. So we're going for 8 minutes already. And this bloody chair. So we're going to pop these tweezers are shite. What I just need to do is use them sideways like that, and then let's drop about a medium size. Just put that on. Yeah. So stick these in there. Yeah, I worked on a mate's JG Org, and they use version 3 gearboxes. The difference is you do not have the safety latch, which I got mixed up with the cut-off lever on the other video. I felt very stupid, but that's part of it. You have a second pair of contacts. So because it's a 2-stage trigger, what would happen is if you pull the trigger all the way, it would bypass the contacts in the cut-off lever area. Right, that's what this is now. Now I can already tell that's a lot better. As you can see, we've got a lot of we've got bugger all play. So I might slip a thin one in there. We've got very little play and very little friction. So I'm going to chuck a thin one in to see what happens, and then we're going to attach the motor and just see how it meshes with the motor pinion. Now you can adjust the motor height of the motor pinion, but it's just worth making sure you haven't balls up the shimming. Shimming is, as I said, a very long process, but it's worth taking your time doing it, because otherwise you end up with a shit job. So let's take a very thin, exceedingly thin shim. I need like an electric screwdriver with a torque setting. It'd be so much quicker, just done. In fact, that's how they are assembled in the factory, I believe. They use torque restricted equipment, so they can quickly do them up and they won't be over tightened. because if you over tighten around the trigger box area on a version 3, in my experience, you can end up with the trigger trolley jumping out and it will not reset after you pull the trigger. I'm probably going to drop that shim out because whilst there's very little play now, there's slightly more friction. And if I'm honest with you, the play before wasn't exactly catastrophic, it wasn't anything to worry about. So yeah, I think that was a bit shim. We don't need that shim now. Now, as I've said before, because the bushings are press fit in this, I cannot remove them. And people recommend that you pair the bushings up of each gear with the shims and the gear, because what will happen is there'll be no bushing the same, resting at the same height. Whereas this, we can't remove them, so we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to drop this this thin shim off. I hate these tweezers. So we've still got this medium shim. I'm going to chuck that in and then put the motor on. And we want to find any backlash between this and the motor pinion. Now, backlash is the gap between teeth. So you'd end up with this distance where the gear will actually turn before it starts to transmit energy. So it will always have to turn a bit more before it actually engages the gear before it starts to turn the gear. And you want to limit the backlash, and because the bevel and the bevel's in the gearbox and the pinion have basically they're tapered, so because they're bevel gears, you can adjust the height and it will adjust the meshing that way. Don't do these up too tight because you might crack your gearbox casing. Don't want to do them up too loose. And that that's exceedingly good, actually. You also want to listen out for anything, any sort of rasping or scraping noises. Now, because there's no lubrication in this, you're going to get friction. And you've probably seen the back of my head several times today. And yes, my hair is a mess today. It's not going out anywhere, don't give a fuck, really. So, yeah, it's worth screwing the gearbox together and doing this. Just that extra, I was supposed to put the motor in. Anyway, yeah, let's just see what's happening with this first. Okay. Now, the spur gear is the one we'll get onto in a minute, but we're going to test the shim between the motor first, the motor pinion and the bevel. Yep, this project, the videos in this are going to be quite long, at least half an hour each, and they're going to be uploaded hopefully once every. I uploaded that last one like 2 o'clock Saturday morning. I'm going to try and do it as often. I don't want to do it too often. They're also going to be found in the Airsoft tutorials thing, because whilst it's a project, you're also seeing a few things which you can do. So anyway, let's take the motor, slap that on. Now already I can tell that it's not in a way that the pinion will not slip on. Like I had an issue with the M14 with that. The motor height was completely way too high and I couldn't actually put the motor cage on because the motor pinion was pushing against the bevel gear in a certain way. I was not a big fan of that. I will be using the M14 next game date, or depending on what time this is released, but hopefully there should be some DMR footage, and there will be a in-depth review on that gun. That gun's got quite a bit of history. Yeah, it's the Cymer CM 032. They're nice guns. People say they're not particularly reliable. Mine wasn't reliable, but that was because I fucked around with it and I didn't. You always want to do a proper job and you want to research things. I'm also going to change screwdrivers because I'm not happy about using that one. Let's grab another one. bloody Lidl's screwdriver set. I've had it for like 5 years now and it's absolutely brilliant. Right, so now that's in place. Now this is going to be quite hard to see, but you want to be able to access the gear, and I'm probably going to struggle to do that. But you want to try and feel for any play. Oh, there we are. There's very little play, there's very little wiggle, which means that it's actually engaging the pinions quite effectively. If it's quite screechy when we turn it on, then we'll just back the motor height out, which I think is already backed out. Oh shit, yeah, just back the motor cage, whoops. There we are. Yeah, we're good, still got a good bit of space. Need to make sure that snaps back into the motor cage. In fact, I'll sort that later. I should probably have left that alone. I didn't make this particularly clear in the other video because I was gabbling on, but I'm not particularly a big fan of version 2s. That's on the bench. Version 3s and 7s and the AEP gearboxes have their own motor carriage or cage, as in the motor is actually mounted onto the gearbox. Version 2s, I know you've got other versions like version 6s and all that, but I have not worked on those. Version 2s, the motor actually sits in the grip of the weapon, so you cannot, it's very hard to, I think it's almost impossible to test the gun outside of the gearbox outside of the gun without making the gear in first, which is a bit irritating really, because it means it's more time and all that you don't waste. No one likes wasting their time. So I can back that out slightly. I think the motor arm's just a bit high. But I can just see that motor twisting quite a bit. But if it's sitting in a motor cage, it will catch and engage. Anyway, weirded me out slightly. Motor height, if it's too high, it could actually stop the gearbox from turning. If it's too low, it will make one of the most horrible screeching sounds you'll ever hear, because the teeth are just going to be skimming past each other. It's horrible. It's not a nice healthy sound. So then the next gear we're going to shim is the spur. Spur is basically the main drivetrain of the gearbox. So we're going to take the shims off this and we're going to stick them to one side and try and pair it up with those shims. Now the best thing about having a gear that's really greased when you shim is it will actually stick, the shims will stick to it. So this is the spur. As you can hear, your gearbox is not going to like it if you ran out without a shim on the bottom. So let's start off with, still racking up now. Let's start off with a particularly meaty shim, just to get some proper clearance. And otherwise, what will happen? There we are. Any scraping is just because the gear is not stable right now. But if you hold it, that's almost silent. Whereas if you didn't have a shim, it can actually wear down on these bushings. It can really make a messy gearbox casing. It's just not nice for the gearbox. Now, we're not going to screw this one together just yet, we're just going to see a rough interpretation of how much play we've got. Oh my god, you could park a bus in that. Right, in that case we're going to drop a big arse shim on the top. So now we've got that big shim on top. We're going to then try and see what happens now. Still a bit of play, but that's drastically reduced. However, we're going to have to see how it meshes with the pinion, first. Not pinion, bevel gear. And what we want is minimal friction between the two. So that's almost perfect. We've got a good amount of surface area of the teeth touching. We've got a hair's gap, actually. I might put ever so slightly thinner shim on the bottom. Yes, if I put ever so slightly thinner shim on the bottom, it means we'll end up with more. We'll end up with more stuff. We'll end up with more surface area between the teeth. And I think now we've got too much surface area. Well, we'll just chuck this on and see what happens. Listen out, finish subscribing. First of all, actually, I'm being stupid. Let's screw the gearbox casing up. Let's get an accurate reading, so to speak. 21 minutes. This is going to be the longest one, probably. I hate shimming gearboxes. I really do not like doing it, but someone's got to do it, and so I might as well record it. I've shimmed helical gears before. They say they're difficult to shim, but I didn't see how they were. I mean, I've probably done it wrong in that case. Okay, little play with the bevel. I put a finish shim on top of the spur. It's just a matter of luck and patience. Sometimes I don't have much. Mostly the latter. Still recording. Yeah, if the video gets quite loud like this and then goes quite quiet, it's because I am looking at the camera occasionally just to make sure we're still recording. I am using my phone. I don't know what the autofocus is like. It's all over the place. It's better than the action cam I've got. The audio on it is absolutely atrocious. Really don't like that camera, but no, that's what I record the Airsoft games with. Again, very little play from that. And very little play in that case. We've got that. That scraping in was just the teeth catching on the tweezers. So now we've got to do the sector gear. And then we'll have it shimmed. And then we can go on to the gearbox reassembly as a whole, which includes lubing it up and all that. Now with the sector gear, again you want to make sure that this flat area doesn't rub too badly on this one. In fact, doesn't rub at all, ideally. And I can tell you that it is rubbing like nothing I've ever seen right now. So we're going to start with a nice beefy shim. You also want to make sure it meshes properly with the cut-off lever. That rubbing noise is coming from the sector gear because of if you get a grinding noise or a rubbing noise, take each gear out sequentially, and then whatever gear is causing it, you'll get those. It won't make noise once the gear's out of place. Now we're going to give that a go. Sometimes you just got to swag this, a scientific wild ass guess. So I'm just going to take a random guess of that and see what happens. Been going on for about 26 minutes now. It's getting bloody cold in here. It's only November, for God's sake. It's really bitingly cold. It's getting down past 0 in the mornings and got -3 last night. Anyway, Now that has got an exceedingly high amount of play. And if you push it down, you can hear scraping. Push it up and turn it. All you hear is the gears meshing up. All you hear are the gears meshing. So we need to shim it upwards. And in theory, that'll be it. So put another thinner shim on the bottom and a big fat shim on top. Because we want it to stop that rasping against the upper gears. And I forgot we got these shims here. I was thinking, oh, I'm running out of shims now. Trying to reuse them. If they're fine and if they're good shape, then they're good to use. Falls off. There. So we want to stick a finish in. There's already a lot of shim on the bottom of this. 4 or 5 shims on there. Really a lot better, but because we're running with a load of shimmers on the bottom, I'm going to put an extra thin one on the top just to try and get any lateral play out. Whew. Let's put some socks on. It's really cold out here. Jacket on as well, but there you go. I've got fanny to wrap. It gets loud and it stinks because there's loads of dust in it. Also, the people who wired up the conservatory took a tap off the lighting circuit rather than the ring mains, so I don't know how it would behave in regards to drawing a 1.3 kilowatt load off the lighting circuit. It's also not protected by it's just not much, don't trust as much. The noise you hear now is just gears meshing. No scraping. But I'm gonna put ever so slight, the thinnest one I can get on the top of that, just to hold it down, and I reckon we'll be ready to go. It might be worth putting some more screws in. Now it's progressed, we will find out. Find one. That might be slightly too big. I prefer if the shims were to stay on posts, on shafts, or axles, or whatever you want to call them, but they don't. Shims will end up anywhere, especially loose ones. The one thing that's lingering on my mind about this project is whether the barrel, this is the inner barrel of a G36K, I believe it is, but because the outer barrel snaps, I'm beginning to suspect that that might be bent. It doesn't look bent, but a micron, literally as ever so slight bend, and your shots are going all over the place. Right. Still very little friction. Bugger all play. I might just quickly check this over. It's not going to spin as efficiently spinning it from there because you are gearing it up, whereas you're gearing it down from here, which is how it changes. This is how it pulls back the spring, because this would not be able to pull the spring back on its own because there's just not enough torque from it. so a gearbox will step it down. But I think that is it. Shims, again I'll just do a double check, but that is roughly how you shim. I'll be going on to the next part of the series, which is going to be reinstalling all of these internals to the gearbox, and then we're going to be moving on to the outer barrel and probably do a gearbox test as well. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, then do not hesitate to hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to share it with your mates, share it on Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, wherever. And if you want to know when there's content like this released, like this series, or an airsoft review, or a loadout video, or when we're live streaming, then don't forget to subscribe and turn on channel notifications via the little bell. That way you'll be notified the second we're live or when we've uploaded something, so you won't be able to miss a moment. Until guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.